information so everybody's aware. And this will give us the opportunity to share it with others later, or in case anyone misses the first part of this today. So I want to thank you all for coming. And I want to introduce you to Jamie Hosking. He's been hired by the city as the e-commerce advisor, and Jamie can tell you a little bit about himself. And actually, why don't you start with that? Tell us how you ended up in this role, Jamie.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks for having me, first of all. The City of Belleville has launched a new program in response to what has been happening with the COVID-19 pandemic and its effect on local businesses. And they've called it the Belleville eCommerce Assistance Program. And this is a free service offered by the City of Belleville, funded by the City of Belleville, to small businesses, independent businesses, home-based businesses, artists who wish to either start an online store, an e-commerce business, or transition their existing business onto an e-commerce platform as well and start selling online.
Okay, great. And so we talked a little bit about how this first conversation is probably going to just challenge the participants, how their organization lives on the internet, and whether they're even in the right space there. We probably won't get talking about selling anything yet, because we need to figure out kind of where our members and our participants today, where their customers, current and potential, are actually looking to find them. And I think part of my thing with a marketing background and an internet background is that often it's difficult for people to transition from what they know to be the way they're used to doing things into that internet world. So really excited to have you, and I've invited some of our solution providers to join us as well, just so they can maybe get a sense of some of the questions that potential customers might ask of them, and give them some sense of where the points of pain are and the challenges with understanding and how to articulate their needs in terms of moving into this internet space. So I will let you go with your great little intro, and we'll go from there.
So the need for this conversation, first of all, is because of the effects that COVID-19 and this pandemic has had on business. Not every business has transitioned to an online retail platform like an e-commerce store. Some people may have been considering it. Some people may have just dabbled in it a little bit. And some companies may have their online business already up and running, and they're looking for ways to optimize that. If you are a business that sells goods, that obviously makes a perfect transition. But if you also sell services and you don't have an online retail presence, absolutely now is the time, now more than ever. And by the way, I work in that phrase in every conversation I have because it's hilarious. Now more than ever, it is vital to have an online business. We saw numbers last year, and it was a little surprising when you're looking at online sales as a measure of total retail sales. In 2019, we're looking around 14-15% of the total sales. And that might be surprising with the popularity of websites like Amazon. You might think that that might be higher, but no. In-person sales still ruled the roost when it came to overall retail in 2019. Since COVID-19, that number has skyrocketed to around 50%. And we're seeing retailers like grocery stores and supermarkets certainly take advantage of that. Even here in Belleville, we have businesses that are specializing in pure delivery. Businesses like Skip the Dishes and Instacart are delivering for restaurants and retailers across the Belleville area. So this is something that every business should definitely be considering, no matter whether they figure that they have a product or service that they can package immediately for sale online. So figuring this out is certainly the most important thing, and not all businesses are going to be a perfect fit for online, but more than some people might think. If you have a service, you can package that, whether it be an hour-long session, class, what have you. You can do that online and pre-sell it almost as if it were a gift certificate or a gift card. A lot of people who wouldn't otherwise order online and shop online were kind of pushed into it thanks to COVID-19 during the quarantine lockdown last spring. where it was, much more challenging to get the goods and get the services, most importantly, the goods, groceries, essential items that you might need from day to day. Many people had to turn or learn how to do this online and get it delivered. And so that fast forwarded everyone's learning curve, both the consumer and the business, to adopt these new online ways of selling and reaching your customers through the internet. So this is a topic that I'm really passionate about. We've got some information that is hot off the presses, so to speak. According to Rakuten Intelligence, and Rakuten, you might have seen their commercials online. They're an online portal for getting discounts and basically customer incentives for shopping online. They reported from March 12th to the 15th, a 210% surge in online sales. That's 3 days at the beginning of the pandemic where they saw online sales skyrocket. So it is absolutely vital to, if you feel that it is something that you can do and you have a product or service in your business that you could potentially package and sell online, to at least try that and see if it's a great fit for your business. The cost of entry is very low, the risk is very low, and the opportunity is very high, I believe.
No, I agree. And when it takes some creative thinking about how you might be able to leverage a service into an online market space, even with the appointment piece now, I mean, maybe it's more about scheduling when you have someone come or being able to move into that space online. So those will be things that we'll probably talk about and we'll merge into as we get more sophisticated into our conversation. But I wonder if we could even just spend a bit of time talking about where people might be with their online presence right now, what they should be looking at with their intended audience. You mentioned in a conversation we had, is that how do you turn browsers into buyers? And I'm just wondering if we have a conversation about how do you turn people into browsers first? Any comment on?
Right. Yeah, well, and of course the knee-jerk reaction is to, okay, well, I put so much effort into my online store, it's now open, let's bring on the sales kind of thing. And you need to think of it similarly to a brick and mortar business. There's more to operating a successful business than just opening up your shop and rolling out your carpet and waiting for people to come in. Potential new customers need to be aware that you're open and what you're providing. And if you have existing customers, that is an opportunity and a gateway to spread the word about your business. So for businesses who are already established and don't have an online store, an e-commerce profile or an e-commerce platform to work with where they're selling their goods and services, your existing customers, of course, are the first and most valuable asset to spread the word and create some organic marketing for perhaps a potential new online store, or maybe one that you already have that hasn't been promoted as well as you would like. But spreading the word through, whether it be email marketing or even in-person flyers, if we're still having customers coming in at this point on a day-to-day basis, printed material still works when it comes to publicizing that sort of thing. But my big sales pitch when it comes to awareness is to create value for your customers. Provide them with answers to their questions, lessons, tutorials, and we'll talk about ways to do this, I'm sure, in the future. But if you provide so much value for your customers, you're telling them how to use the products and services you're providing. You're giving them tips and tricks on what to do best with. And I could pull, say, a gardening business, for example. If you're in a position where you can write quick tutorials or lessons or shoot a quick video on how to do particular things when it comes to your garden. You're providing value to your customers at no cost. Certainly they'll be appreciative. And when they think to buy their gardening supplies, the idea is that they'll feel so beholden to you that they'll come and buy from you first. And I'm a big fan of giving. So when you finally ask for that sale, they almost feel obligated to buy from you because you've done so much to provide value in their lives. So that's one of the big ways Certainly, there are other traditional ways that you might have heard of when it comes to online sales. Optimizing your business for search engines like Google, obviously, is the primary one. Making sure that whoever's working with your website, whether it be new or existing, knows what they're doing when it comes to what we call search engine optimization. And that just means making sure that the text and pictures on your website are such that Google will search and find everything on your website in the easiest possible way and index it on their site so that you're highly ranked when it comes to searching for your business on Google. And then, of course, there are things like online advertising. And we mentioned, of course, creating valuable content for your students, or sorry, students here, my worlds are colliding, your customers as well.
So this also suggests that you have a website already. And
yes.
So I think, is there any way you can have an e-commerce platform without a website, really?
Well, absolutely. Your e-commerce platform will be website based. So there are companies out there like Shopify, certainly the most popular and well-known one. They are an e-commerce business at its core, but what they're providing you is a website-based e-commerce solution. So it is an e-commerce store, an online retail store that accepts payments and allows you to organize your customers and arrange for shipping and all of the nuances and details that goes along with online business in a one-stop shop that provides that to you in a website. And they allow you to design and choose from a variety of templates, etc. But when we're talking about an e-commerce business, it is always going to be website based, whether it's based in your own company or business's website or with an organization like Shopify. And those two can be interlinked in different ways as well. But yes, it is absolutely, if you don't have a website for your business right now, that's where definitely you should be starting first.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about what the context of that website should look like. So we'll presume that most everybody has one, but if you don't, the first thing you need is something, and what would be the basic pieces of information you would say somebody has to have there?
Well, the website is ideally the home for all the details of your business. So traditionally, a website would typically have sections in it that would tell viewers and customers about your business, who you are, why people should shop with you, what you're providing, what value you're providing, as well as the products and services you're providing. It'll have a way to certainly find your business. If you have a brick and mortar business, if you have a physical building, you're going to have details about your operating hours, your address, how to contact you by email and by phone, as well as hopefully a contact form that website visitors can fill out to reach you. Any social media that you might also have. If you have a Facebook page or an Instagram account for your business, you'll want to add those to your website. Your website ultimately is a hub, is a central location for customers to find anything that they need to find out about your company or your business. It's almost in lieu of what you might consider to be before the website, the annual report, only without all the figures and that sort of thing. But an annual report would also have good sections on who your company is, what your philosophy is, what your mission, what your values are, that sort of thing. And then, of course, you obviously can have content and pages that show off your products and services in the best possible light.
So I'm going to just, I'll ask a quick poll here. Do you already have a website you manage? And maybe that's part of it.
Yeah, and there are two aspects to that. In 2020, it is very possible to engage with services online that can create a website for your company very easily, if that's something that you want to have full control over and you don't want to or don't have the means to farm that out to a website developer or a web designer. I do highly recommend that if that's something that's within your budget. And if it isn't, I would seriously consider allocating some of your overall business operating budget to making sure that happens. And the other advantage, of course, to having a third party helping you with these efforts is that they're going to be fully versed in e-commerce and establishing an e-commerce section on your website to get you up and running. They're going to be able to, hopefully, if they know their stuff, answer all the questions you might have about e-commerce as well.
Right. So 9 of our 11 people who are on this call today have indicated that they do have a website that they manage. So that's great.
That's good. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we're good there. So an extension of that too, we also have this whole piece of Google. We've talked a little bit about the whole SEO piece in terms of search engine optimization, but Google has another arm to that really feeds reviews and gives people an opportunity to get an idea of what let other people tell you, and that will also increase your kind of recognition in terms of where you place on a search. And keeping in mind that if you're looking for tattoos in Belleville, I'm going to write tattoos Belleville or tattoos Kingston. And so if you're in the tattoo industry, hopefully you will automatically come up, even if you don't have much information, like through Yellow Pages or whatever else. But tell me a little bit about how we can leverage that Google piece too, because maybe that's one space where we find people are less inclined to be involved.
Sure. And of course, Google has certainly become one of the most powerful companies in the world, or certainly one of the most influential. Both Google and Facebook started off in different areas. Google started off as search. Facebook started off as social media. Both of these companies have ultimately evolved into advertising companies. They're advertising platforms. Make no mistake. They're offering you free services, but in exchange for your information and the opportunity to market and advertise to you. So when it comes to Google and search engine optimization and making sure that you're well represented on Google, they certainly offer free, no-cost help with that in the form of Google My Business and listing your business on Google at no charge. That's in their best interest too, to ensure that their listings and their information about as many businesses as possible is up to date and accurate and provided by the original source. And then, of course, along with that is Google reviews. And those can be important and vital to make sure that your business is well represented and to make sure that they're easily found online. So that's something that you can not necessarily curate, but monitor and make sure that what's happening online is to your business best interest. And if there's something on there that's not necessarily as positive as you might like, that gives you a unique opportunity to address any customer issues that you might have as well. When it comes to SEO, there's no real magic to it. It's just a matter of learning exactly what Google is looking for, what types of keywords that you should be listing in your website, most notably specific to your industry or what type of business that you're operating in. They do also offer paid advertising on Google, and that would be more of a next level thing that you would maybe look at after you've ensured that your SEO with Google and your business listings with Google are already at 100% and you're happy with it.
Right. Well, and I remember back in the day, all you had to do was throw a whole bunch of words at the front, and that would be enough to convince Yahoo back in the day, or even Netscape, that you were the right place to be because you matched that word. Google's gotten a lot more clever with that. So SEO, it seems to me the rules about SEO tend to change on a regular basis. So it's a trickier one. But the other piece to this is we're not really trying to compete on a global level for the most part.
No.
If you're starting,
and it's funny, you should
go ahead.
Yeah, it's funny, you just what you said earlier there about searching for businesses in Belleville or in Kingston. I would add to that and encourage people to make sure that you're listing Belleville or you're searching Belleville, Ontario or Kingston, Ontario to get that more specific, because now we're dealing with a global marketplace and a global search online where you can search for businesses in Bellevue, Minnesota, or Kingston, Jamaica, or Kingston, Nova Scotia. So you can sell globally, but you can still market and have your presence known regionally and locally just as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes, occasionally we get calls for the Belleville, Illinois Chamber of Commerce, not gonna lie.
Right, yes.
And
Yes,
the
and I work
accent
for an
usually gives them
organization.
away. Yeah.
Yes, and I work for an organization in downtown called Community Learning Alternatives that people may be familiar with, but it also could be the Cleveland Library Association. You know, you never know.
Right, exactly, picking. So I know that I actually have a good question in here, and I know this is one that we've talked about because it's going to lead into probably conversations we have later. But what advice can you provide in regard to the budget for a digital e-commerce business, advertising, SEO,
Right.
Google ad?
Absolutely, yeah. Well, when it comes to budget, it isn't nearly as much as you might think. It's certainly going to be a fraction of what you might spend, and respect to these outlets, of course, on print or display advertising. Think about it this way. When you're a passenger in a car and you're driving and you're at a stop sign or a traffic light, are you looking up at billboards or are you looking at your phone? It's a matter of attention, really. And same with print advertising. You're hoping that whoever is looking at that magazine or newspaper is going to look at the page that your ad is in and actually give attention to that ad in the corner. And you're paying, a good amount of money for that. On the flip side of that, when it comes to let's say you're starting from scratch and you do not have a website at all. That is something that if you want to learn how to do it on your own, you can do and host for about $200 a year. And then the additional e-commerce on top of that, if you're using a service, say like Shopify, that is priced at around $30 a month. So again, the cost of entry is very, very low, or it certainly can be. If you're not doing your website yourself, that's something that you would have to discuss with your website manager and see what they're recommending. But the cost of getting a business up and running, let's say I wanted to start a t-shirt business today, I could buy the URL, the domain name, for under $20. I could arrange for hosting for $200 a year. I could engage with Shopify for $30 a year, find a print-on-demand business like Teespring or something like that, and I could be up and running this afternoon if I really put the effort into it. It's that quick and that easy, and ultimately that low cost if you really want it to be. There's also advertising platforms like we've probably already mentioned, of course, like Google and Facebook. I think you also, if you haven't done it before, may be surprised not only how low cost they are when you're comparing to display and online and other forms of print and other forms of advertising, but how micro-targeted you can get with online advertising. You can get people within 50 kilometers or 25 kilometers of your business. You can get people within a certain age range. If, let's say, you're a sporting goods store and you specialize in golf, you can target people that love golf and that golf in the region, or just sports fans in general if you want to widen that target market. The beauty of that is that you're only spending advertising dollars on really pre-qualified potential customers as opposed to kind of a almost shotgun approach for other forms of advertising.
Right. And we've learned more and more that targeted marketing is really the way it goes, and that's your best spend. And social media has made that a lot easier to identify.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting
Absolutely.
but it's also interesting how people don't necessarily think about their target market. And maybe not necessarily for the group here today, but for those who may be listening to that later. I know when I was dealing with some of my students, we would talk about, well, he said, I'm going to start a motorcycle repair place. I said, okay, so what's your target audience? And he said, well, men. I said, okay, well, that's a start. But I said, think about how many teachers you have in your program right now and how many of them are men. I'm probably the only woman. And how many of them are they all your customers or potential customers? Well, and then he started to realize that if they don't have a motorcycle, they're not likely to be a customer.
Right.
So like you have to
need
start
parts for something I don't have.
Yes, exactly. I'd love to go and see you, but I probably don't need it. So
Right.
It's kind of trying to identify that demographic and the geographic and the need that you're trying to fulfill with your product. And
Mm-hmm.
if that becomes part of the structure of your website, and if that's where the professional really comes into play because they understand your target market better. And I think if you go
Absolutely.
and if you go into, engage a professional with this process of redesigning a website or enhancing that, it's partly understanding who it is that you're trying to sell to or who you want to have engage, whether it's with a service or a product. So how are you going to reach them best, and where will you reach them best?
Well, the first thing I would certainly recommend is to engage your existing customers and find out where they're spending their time. What has their attention? As an example, if I have a customer base that tends to skew a little older, let's say 40 plus, I might not be surprised if I find that they're spending a majority of their online time on Facebook. Facebook in 2020 is skewing a little bit older. You're going to find that younger internet users aren't really interested in Facebook. But if I'm a business that sells skateboards and sporting goods, and I find that my customer base tends to be younger, I may want to look at Instagram, or I might want to even look at platforms like TikTok. These are, I don't care what they are. I'm not married to any of these. None of them are going to last forever. I just want to know where people are spending their time online. I want to know where their eyeballs are. And then I want to make sure that I put my messaging in front of them. I don't care what it is. I just want to know where they're spending that time. And that would depend on the demographic of that customer, whether they be male or female, younger or older, what their interests are, that sort of thing.
Right. I used to joke the best place to find a boater if you have something to sell to them is in the back of a bathroom stall in a marina. But
you're not wrong. Absolutely right. And the other part of that too, I want to mention is that it's important, or I think it is ideal at least, to establish your business and ultimately yourself as a knowledge source, an expert, if you will, in that field, in your niche of business. So you're going to have knowledge that your customer doesn't have. And you can't assume that they know everything that you know, because they simply don't. So if you can provide them with information, knowledge, the skills that they need to excel in a hobby, say you're a hobby shop, and you're not providing knowledge, online classes, for example, you could easily do something like what we're doing right now with Zoom or with Google Meet or any number of online platforms. This is zero cost what we're doing right now. You could offer this to your customers. You could set aside an hour a month and say, hey, we're going to do a class on how to maintain the perfect lawn, or how to make repairs on your motorcycle that you never thought possible, and provide that value to your customers. Establish yourself as an expert in this sort of thing, and they will keep coming back to you for business.
Fair enough. I do have another little question here. And do you have, from a business-to-business advertising perspective, is this Facebook or LinkedIn now? Do you have a thought on that?
Yes, I do. And I know that other marketers tend to echo this as well. LinkedIn, I believe, is a absolute up-and-coming platform, if it's not already there already. I've heard other marketers and kind of thought leaders in this space call LinkedIn where Facebook was in 2012. It is kind of like in its late infancy of being an absolute perfect platform for B2B when it comes to marketing your business to other businesses. It has an air of legitimacy that maybe Facebook has had erode over time with the things that happen on typical social media platforms. We've seen, certainly, I certainly don't want to get into this, but we've certainly seen politics bleed into social media in a way that can be off-putting for a lot of people. We've seen people say, I'm done with Facebook and all the nonsense. You hear that every once in a while from folks. So as huge a platform as, say, Facebook is, and I am not deterring it whatsoever, you should seriously look at it. LinkedIn, I think, is a massive opportunity, especially for B2B. Make sure that not only your personal LinkedIn profile is cleaned up and ready for 2020, but make sure that your business is also well represented on LinkedIn as well. You can publish on LinkedIn just like you can on Facebook now too. They have a news feed, a daily rundown, many of the similar features that you'd find on other social media platforms. But really, LinkedIn right now is Facebook for business. And
Yeah.
I would certainly lean into Facebook quite a bit if you are a business that deals with other businesses as your customer.
Right. No, I would say that that's definitely what I'm seeing. And you're very right. That whole back to 2012, when Facebook had good articles and good reads, and now it's a quiz on whether or not I've had a tattoo. But yeah, or what does my birth month mean?
Exactly right. Well, yeah. Which Sex and the City character are you?
Yeah.
One other thing that I will mention too is that in case you're not as familiar with LinkedIn, LinkedIn is quite a robust platform right now. LinkedIn a few years ago bought an online learning platform called lynda.com, which was an online course provider for mostly business and technical courses, but very highly regarded, very well respected. LinkedIn.com bought lynda.com for quite a chunk of change and is now a great online learning platform. You can learn a lot of the subjects that we're talking about today on now LinkedIn Learning. And then shortly after that happened, a little company called Microsoft bought LinkedIn. So they're not going anywhere anytime soon. As much as I say nothing lasts forever, LinkedIn has now had a new investment and now are quite robust and certainly a platform that I would trust to be around for a little while.
Fair enough. Yes. No, I keep thinking I need to get into that space more frequently. The challenge is content development, and how do I know whether or not I'm engaging with people on that platform?
Right.
And we have a question exactly about that. How frequently should you be using these social media platforms? I mean, on one hand, I joke about a post is kind of like seeing the red car pass by your window, and if you missed it, you've missed it. But
right.
But tell me, what's your thought there?
Well, there's a couple of things going on here. Certainly, you'd want to determine whether your customer base, or at least your existing customer base, if you have one and you've been in business, where they're spending their time, first of all, online. And if you've been able to identify that, how many times should you be posting? As often as you can. Now, there we go, I'm doing it now more than ever. And the reason why I say that is because the organic reach of Facebook is almost non-existent now. As they've made the pivot towards an online advertising platform, they are selling advertising. So if you have a Facebook page for your business, absolutely you should. I encourage you to do that right away. If you haven't done that already, when this call is over, go and do that. But as you're posting, the people who like and follow your page, they're only going to see that post organically in their newsfeed if they happen to be on Facebook at the time you post. They're not going to rerun that post again. Boosting a post, by the way, in Facebook terminology, will rerun that post again, but it's a colossal waste of money. They really want you to spend money on Facebook advertising. So if you do want that organic reach and you're not ready to pull the trigger, you just want to see how Facebook's going to go and work for you, I would recommend posting at least once a day, if not a couple of times a day. And these don't have to be grand, super designed, slick, well produced, none of that. The more grassroots that they are, in a lot of ways, the better. They're more relatable. It's certainly going to be a lot easier to produce. We're all walking around with mini TV studios in our pockets in the form of our mobile phones. If, for example, if I was working at a motorcycle shop and one of my mechanics was doing something that he said, hey, you know what? People can learn how to do this and maintain this particular part of their bike and avoid certain problems. I'd pull up my phone and shoot a quick 1-minute video of my mechanic explaining this. It doesn't have to be filled with graphics or titles or music. I'd throw that up online. There's a marketer that people may or may not have heard of named Gary Vaynerchuk. And whatever you think of him, he has a great slogan. He says, document, don't create. Don't get all mixed up in the nuts and bolts of creating a piece of content, whether it's a post in Facebook or a video. Just do it and get it out there. The more you can do that on a quick basis, in this case, quantity does trump quality in a lot of respects.
Fair enough. Yes, and we often focus on the perfect versus done, and it's important to realize that, you know, there is, and I would say that this is a little bit different if you're, I mean, Instagram to Snapchat to Facebook to LinkedIn, each of them will require a different level of professionalism, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, I would recommend creating unique content for each one of those platforms if you can. Now, mind you, if it's a photo, certainly that's something that can be posted in a variety of different platforms. But I would cater to each one of those platforms. Instagram is an ideal place for amazing photography. TikTok is for quick and snappy videos. It doesn't have to be music based if you're familiar with TikTok. Facebook lends itself to a little bit more longer form items that could have a visual. You can also get engagement with Facebook with their messaging feature and that sort of thing. So yeah, some of these platforms you can kind of cross-pollinate with the same content, and others you'd want to gear more specifically towards that platform. For example, you can't really write an article for YouTube. It's got to be a video. But you can write an article for your own website or your own blog, or even something like certainly Facebook. And some people have even used Instagram for long rants in the description of their Instagram.
And we don't see that on Facebook at all.
Yeah, ranting? No, I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. So there are services out there like Buffer and Hootsuite that are social media management platforms. They do provide the service for a fee, but they will package your content for each one of those platforms and launch it simultaneously for you. You'll get added metrics and that sort of thing. These are paid services, mind you, but they do offer some value. And you can use one of these services to create your content on that platform, and then it will distribute it amongst all of those social media channels. They can work, or they cannot work, depending on how far in advance and how sensitive some of this stuff is. It can go horribly wrong. Let's say there is an awful terrorist bombing somewhere, and then you have a post 10 minutes later, we're going to have a blast at our grand opening. Well, you don't want to really do that. You want to maybe not have any content that might be related to something horrible that's just happened. So you might not want to pre-plan things too far in advance. Certainly something like a holiday post you can certainly do in advance. There's really not going to be a lot of controversy with that. But there are different ways to handle this if you feel that it's too overwhelming. You can also just focus on one. If you find that the majority of your customers are on Instagram and kind of ignore everything else, then you might want to go and focus all of your efforts on that one particular platform. I would try dabbling in as many as you can to see what results you're getting, see what kind of traction you're getting. And if it's not for you, if you don't like it, or if your customers aren't into it, then go ahead and abandon it and go on to something else. Again, you're not married to any of this stuff. You're just looking for what works, and you can try it all because the majority of this stuff is free, and figure it out for yourself to see if it's something that works for you and your business.
Right. So as we kind of dial back to the idea that at some point through this series, we're really going to take people into the conversation about e-commerce, is that what we're kind of establishing today is that your web presence and understanding your target market are two key things that you want to establish, because your e-commerce or your movement into an e-commerce platform won't be successful unless you have those two things in place already.
That's right. You've got to have that attention and that awareness that you're online, first of all, and that you're offering that type of service. And then you're going to want to provide value to those customers that you've gained attention.
And so presenting
a lot of effectiveness. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, so presenting as an expert. So in the content development of that website, of those posts, and of identifying your target market, presenting yourself as an expert to them as the solution to their problem. You have what they need.
Right.
And that will take us into that conversation, I think, as we go forward about what type of e-commerce platform should we use. I do have a question there if there's anything other than Shopify. And I would say that's going to be a really robust conversation in a couple of weeks. But do you have any thoughts right now?
I do, yeah. There are options. Certainly Shopify is the market leader, but they're an all-in-one solution. They're giving you a website with everything that you need, kind of turnkey for e-commerce at a price. If you have an existing website, and if you have somebody that you trust as your developer for that site, they may have better and less expensive solutions. And I'm not saying that Shopify is necessarily that expensive, but their knowledge you should take advantage of, and they may have a more robust solution for your e-commerce needs. As a quick example, if you have a website that's built using the WordPress platform, I would potentially suggest that WooCommerce might be a better platform for you than Shopify, especially if you have somebody behind it that can handle the nuts and bolts of it. So there are other options besides Shopify, absolutely. They're not the only one out there. One other thing I wanted to quickly mention and make sure that people understand, it was earlier we were discussing the type of content that you make and putting things out there. And now it escaped me. I'll come back to it.
Okay. All right. So what I might do, and I had mentioned that we might let people talk here just to get a sense of what they are looking for. Let me just see if I can unmute everybody or just see how I can do that. So here I've got, I'll allow people to talk here. And if they have any questions, they can kind of jump into this conversation. Sorry, if they have. And then they can bring that to you. I'll focus on the participants who I know are not necessarily service providers at this point in time. But they can bring that in. So does anybody have any questions or thoughts about this?
I'll put it out there that if anybody does have any questions after this call is over, feel free to email me. I'll provide you with the email address for the Belleville e-commerce assistance program. Get ready because it's long. It is info@bellevilleecommerceassistance.ca. And you can also go to the website, bellevilleecommerceassistance.ca, for a little bit of information. There are some resources there, so you can do a little bit more learning as well. And also a way to contact me on there as well.
Right, so info@ecommerce.
info@bellevilleecommerceassistance.ca. We offer a free consulting service, so if people have direct questions about their own specific business, I'm happy to speak with you on the phone, to meet with you in person, to do a Zoom call like this, where I can give you one-on-one consultation about solutions that would work well with you. It is a small business initiative, I might reiterate. So we're looking at smaller businesses that don't have, say, a corporate head office behind them. We're also interested in any artists that might be looking to sell their wares online with an online platform, or any home-based businesses that might be interested in opening up an online business as well.
Good. So I guess we've got a few, it doesn't look like anybody really has anything that they want to ask at this point. And what I will do is
everyone's questions.
And what we'll do is I will send an email out to everybody kind of as a follow-up to say, okay, after this initial conversation, is there more or less that you would like us to focus on? We have a series of topics that we have kind of identified that we think will move us forward into this conversation around e-commerce. And the other thing, at some point, I would love for you to get in touch with some of our solution providers in the community so that you are aware of kind of their levels of expertise and their specialties, because each one of them brings something different to the conversation in terms of how they approach their skill set. So
absolutely. for those companies who are not familiar, we have really, Belleville's unique in a way where we have a lot of great service providers in this space, in web development, in online e-commerce, in internet solutions, where we have a lot of well-respected businesses in the Belleville area that can help with just these specific areas that we've been talking about today.
Yes, whether it's hiring someone to manage your social media, or it's someone who's going to do everything from the baseline of your website to your e-commerce solution as a customized approach. And we'll get into a little bit about how, we have, what investment it takes of your time to get into that e-commerce piece. So
yeah, and that will be the real investment. And make no mistake, your time does have value, of course. But yeah, that is the one real investment that you should consider, is that set aside the time. It will pay off in dividends. Absolutely it will. I have enormous faith in that. But it does require a little time, both in the learning curve for this, where you'll learn exactly how these tools and these resources will work for you and your business, and on how to execute on them on a day, or with them on a day-to-day basis.
Jamie.
Yes.
This is Stephen Hughes at Drainall. We've talked about the platform, the e-commerce, and it seems to be what you're getting into primarily retail. And you did mention that LinkedIn could be of value for business to business. If we wanted to target municipal, commercial, or industrial type clients, is there a separate platform that you can suggest, or is LinkedIn not the only one?
No, LinkedIn, I think, would be the best place for just that. I think you might be surprised with how thorough some of the listings will be for the exact contacts you're looking for. You could search for the government departments or even the people that you're looking for on LinkedIn and reach out to them directly. I've heard some great stories about how people are looking for a particular client and they'll find them on a social media platform like Instagram or LinkedIn and reach out to them with a private message. And relationships are established that way. I've heard of people being hired as employees through Instagram. That was the sole point of contact for the entire transaction, from interviewing to hiring to reporting for work for the first day. But when it comes to business, I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised with how many contacts you're going to find on LinkedIn and how they're represented. At least I'm hoping they are. And if they're not on there, that's to their detriment, unfortunately. But when it comes to finding the principal players in any particular business or government organization, I think you're going to find that you're going to see them represented on LinkedIn. There are ways to communicate with them directly through LinkedIn as well. I've had some people reach out to me, actually, as part of the Belleville e-commerce assistance program through LinkedIn. And it's a great way to find out who the key players are in any particular business or organization.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm not sure, do we have anybody else who wants to jump in, have a question at all? Like I say, I'll follow up with a quick little email asking if you have any questions that we would like. I'll give you the list. So next week we would be here on Wednesday, and we'll do it at noon again. Just a bit of timing. It's just amazing how we're this far into September already. Like next week is October, but the post Labor Day, it just kind of seemed to extend. But anyway, we will go to Wednesdays. We'll move our Chamber Chat Live to that time. And Jamie, we look forward to having you again next week. Any final words?
I just want to thank you for having me here. If you do have questions, feel free to either save them for next Wednesday or send them to me directly at info@bellevilleecommerce.ca. We are going to cover we're going to get into a deeper dive in a lot of these subjects that we've been talking about. We've kind of just scratched the surface, so to speak, on a lot of different areas of making sure that your business is well represented online in e-commerce platforms. But we can go into more of the nuances of how this all operates and how you can maximize the benefits of everything we're talking about here for your business.
Right. Okay, that's fantastic. Okay, thank you, everyone. And the recording will be ready in a little bit, so I'll send that along with my follow-up email. Okay, thanks, guys. Have a great
Thank you, folks.
afternoon. Bye.
Thank you. Thanks.